Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our webinar. We are thrilled to share how an advanced AI chatbot can be the ultimate team player for higher ed. Jumping right in, I welcome our expert panel for the webinar. Jared Bonino, Director of Product Management, Unified, and Anthony Humphreys, the President at BlackBeltHelp. I would now like to hand over the platform to Jared to begin this webinar. Jared, over to you.
Thanks, Shrishti. As Shrishti mentioned, we're going to cover a lot of exciting content today, all focused around our artificial intelligence solutions and how those can be incorporated into your university's tech stack to really help and augment your staff and help with student services. Before I hand things to the real star of the show today, who's Anthony from our BlackBeltHelp team, I'll cover the agenda, and I know we've thrown a lot at you already in terms of saying, hey, there's Unified, there's BlackBeltHelp. If you're wondering who are these companies, if you're not familiar with us, we're going to cover that within the introduction. Anthony's going to guide us through a really cool demo of the AI chatbot, and then we'll open things up for Q&A before covering to talk about next steps if you're interested in moving forward with incorporating an AI chatbot on your website. I know we have a section for Q&A, but I would encourage you to use the Q&A panel on Zoom throughout the session. I will be sort of weaseling in and asking questions along the way as Anthony presents his content. So feel free, if you see something on the screen and you have a question about it, feel free to go ahead and reach out, and we'll try to get that answered as promptly as possible. As Shrishti mentioned, my name is Jared Bonino. I am the Director of Product Management at Unified. I've been with the company for about 7 months now. Prior to joining Unified, I worked for a company called BlackBeltHelp, mostly in the fundraising and advancement services area, where we built a whole lot of fundraising functionality and catered to a whole lot of verticals, including higher education. Super excited to be joining you today from Charleston, South Carolina. And I'm partnered today with somebody from BlackBeltHelp, who I will let introduce himself.
Great, thanks, Jared. Hi, everybody. I'm Anthony Humphreys. I'm the president of BlackBeltHelp. And a little bit of history about me. I was a financial aid director for many years in California at both several different institutions, community colleges and four-year privates, and had a short stint as a VP of students as well. I then went into sort of the .edu world or .com.edu world and worked for Lucien running the product management team, and then went to Blackboard for 10 years as well, running the one-stop team before coming here 5 years ago as president. Thanks, Jared.
Awesome. We'll be hearing a lot from Anthony a little bit later in this presentation. As I mentioned, he's the real star of the show. But before then, we wanted to sort of set the table and help you understand, you know, Anthony's representing BlackBeltHelp, I'm representing Unified. How do those two organizations fit together, and why are we collaborating not only in this webinar, but by delivering an AI-driven chatbot solution for universities like yours? So a little bit about Unified. Most of you on this call, I believe, would be familiar with us. If not, we are more than likely the provider of your student portal. So we have a product called Unified Engage that we deliver to a number of customers, some of which you see represented on this slide. We have about 150 customers globally and cater to about a little over 1 million users on the platform. We are headquartered in Miami. The majority of our operations are in Gurgaon, India. And we are technically owned by a private equity and venture capital fund with over 100 million in assets, which is where kind of the history of Unified and BlackBeltHelp begins. So that venture capital firm I just mentioned operates a company called Campus Consortium, which really founded both Unified and BlackBeltHelp in 2004. And both of these companies were built to cater to higher ed institutions specifically, but in slightly different ways. Unified was a company focused on building products and services. So we have primarily a student engagement portal, but we also have an admissions platform, as well as a student information system, which is primarily utilized today in India. At a similar time, BlackBeltHelp was founded to provide contact center as a service options for higher ed institutions that either wanted to complement their staff or wanted to outsource that particular function. As fate would have it, over the next 16 years, products became a little bit more service-oriented, service offerings became a little bit more productized, and we found ourselves in 2020 both building chatbots. So Unified was building a chatbot that is integrated within the student engagement portal. It was there to answer student questions as they arose, as students might be browsing around their authenticated portal experience. And BlackBeltHelp was building a chatbot that was primarily more focused on IT desk questions, help desk type solutions. But as we continue to develop, we sort of realized that we were on this divergent path of building two different user experiences for what really should be, no pun intended, but a unified student experience interacting with a single chatbot. So early last year, we announced our formal partnership to phase out the unified version of a chatbot in favor of the chatbot being developed and maintained from our partners over at BlackBeltHelp. So if you're confused about, hey, I thought I was using a unified chatbot called Yoda. Now Anthony's going to talk to you a little bit about the BlackBeltHelp chatbot, which is slightly different. We're going to talk about how we want to encourage you to work with us to migrate to like the latest and greatest chatbot that Anthony's going to show today. And if you're not using a chatbot at all, this is more or less irrelevant. We probably have a mix of people that are using Yoda today and people that aren't using a chatbot at all, but wanted to give you a little bit of history of if you implemented a chatbot in 2000 or 2001, you're likely using a version that is now being phased out in favor of the latest and greatest. Anthony's going to show us. We're super excited about the response we've gotten from customers so far on the new chatbot. So I co-hosted a webinar with New Mexico Highlands University about a month and a half ago. We'll provide a link to that. But one of the things that Adele, their technology services director, articulated on that call is just how impactful that chatbot's been on their day-to-day operations. So we touched on a number of aspects of the Unified Engage portal and how they're being used at NMHU. But one of the things you could tell she was most excited about was, hey, we implemented this chatbot and we're seeing a lot of activity. We're getting reports that show us what questions students are asking. We have the opportunity to answer responses that the chatbot's providing. And first and foremost, we're hearing a lot of positive impact from students just based on the fact that they have access to something that can at least answer some of their questions at times that NMHU has not staffed help desk personnel. So the concept of nights and weekends question and answer support is something that for her has made a real game changer in terms of how engaged students are and how she sees them utilizing a technology like this. But NMHU is not the only university we're working with today to provide a chatbot experience. We have a number of organizations that we've implemented this, and we're really gathering some really cool insights that I'm sure Anthony is going to help share as part of his demo and wrap up at the end of the call. So before I throw it over to Anthony for the more exciting and interactive portion of today's webinar, we do have a few poll questions that we wanted to introduce to you guys. Starting with a basic question about what AI tools are the attendees of this webinar currently aware of? I think most of us have probably heard of ChatGPT. Some of us might be more familiar with certain APIs or other AI-centric solutions, but we just want to keep it open-ended. What are some of the AI-centered solutions that you're familiar with today? Awesome. And while you guys are wrapping up submitting your response to that question, I want to throw it over to Anthony to pick up from here.
All right, great. Thanks, Jared. And everybody will share those results as soon as we have them, hopefully here in just a few minutes. Quick overview for BlackBeltHelp. Again, that's probably new for many of you as to the company that we are. And thanks again, Jared, for the introductions. We are the #1 AI-powered contact center service provider in the industry. We do focus just on higher ed. And we do that because we know higher ed is unique. I, of course, came from higher ed. My whole career has been in higher ed. But we know that there are unique intricacies to higher ed that are just not available in other markets, be it healthcare or K-12 or anything else. So we serve just that higher ed space. We have about 250 or so clients across the US. We serve about 4 million students and take about 1.4 million interactions a year in our call center. But as Jared mentioned, many years ago, we realized that the contact center business is changing. And with new technological advancements, be it chatbots or other items like Advisor Assist, that institutions may need a hybrid approach, services and software. Services and technology combined is certainly more powerful. So that's kind of what we've done the last 5 years, is really transitioned, as Jared said, from services to product and product to services. And obviously, we still maintain our core competencies around contact center for IT help desk and LMS. But we have added other great products in terms of voice and chatbots, knowledge bases and things like that. So we'll cover those things today. Quick overview of our team. You can see me there. We also have our Chief Revenue Officer, Anthony Banford, Todd Hollera, Christopher Uthi, and Manish Gambier. So that's a quick overview of BBH as a company. We partner very, very closely with Unified and have been working with them, as Jared mentioned, for many years. So we're excited to kind of continue, and we're going to cover a little bit of content, and then we'll get into the demo, and then we'll come back and answer any questions that folks may have. So here's a quick overview of our products and services. You'll see on the right, we have our human cloud network. Those are our actual people. Those are our agents, and we have about 400 or so agents, half of which are based here in the US. They're all work from home agents. Of course, that was a big transition before COVID. And then the other half of the agents are based in Gurgaon, India. And our agents handle all the types of questions that you see there and more. So everything from student, staff, and faculty that have questions around admissions, financial aid, student services, which could be anything from housing to military and veterans affairs, student accounts, housing, etc. And then, of course, we also kind of back to our original service offering with LMS support, regardless of what LMS that is, and IT help desk. We're very much technology agnostic. We know that institutions have a number of different technologies on campus, some of which are integrated, many of which are probably not, but all of which hold really key information about your students that really your students are expecting you as an institution to leverage whenever they're reaching out for help. So that's our right-hand side of our solutions column, the Human Cloud Network. On the left are our customer experience products. These are our software products. So for example, our CX portal, this is kind of our admin portal where our clients can see all of their reporting needs, see tickets, and integrate. You'll also see the next one down is AI voice and chatbots. We'll talk about that in some detail in just a few minutes. But we also have a few other products there, Advisor Assist, which is a tool that is what our agents use in our contact centers to pull data from across an institution's enterprise. And that's what enables us to answer questions for institutions as if we're them. So when our clients have partnered with us, their students, staff, and faculty will look to us to be an agent of the institution. We should know what the institution knows. We'll know the policies and procedures of that institution and create a very detailed knowledge base because each institution is entirely different. So that's Advisor Assist. And we've also started licensing that product out to institutions as well to kind of use in their presence-based one-stop. We know that just about every institution has some sort of SIS or ERP system, as well as a CRM, as well as an LMS. But the idea of Advisor Assist is to pull data from all of those different systems and leverage it when working with your different constituents and users. We also have some automated password reset functionality to speed up that IT process where maybe 30 to 40% of those inbound interactions can be around that topic. But we also do things like engagement messaging. So outbound messaging to students that may be around bill payment, onboarding, financial aid application, graduation announcements, and such. And then the last couple of things there, of course, we mentioned already the knowledge base and the classroom technology emergency app. That's really just kind of think of it as an easy button for faculty to use in a classroom when something goes awry. Either maybe the Wi-Fi goes down or the projector loses its power. So that's an overview of all of our different solutions. We're going to focus today, of course, on the voice and chatbots. So let's go to the next slide. So this is how we make it happen. This is where we get a lot of questions from our prospective customers, our prospective clients, and our current clients of how do you make this work? How do you answer questions as if you're an institution? But then more importantly, for today's focus, how do you enable your chatbot to not just be an FAQ chatbot, but also an integrated chatbot? meaning that it can answer student-specific questions. And we'll talk about that as well as show it to you in just a little bit. But this is how we do it. We can integrate to an institution's CRM, be it HubSpot or TargetX or Salesforce or Slate or any other. We happen to use Salesforce ourselves as well, but we can also integrate to an LMS. And we're, again, agnostic on all of these technologies. So whether it's Blackboard Learn, Canvas, D2L, and again, whether your student information system or ERP is Workday, Genzabar, Banner, Colleague, or Oracle, those things are all really rich data stores for student information that we want to make sure we can leverage. And then lastly, of course, there on the ITSM side, so many institutions already may have a ticketing system or an ITSM solution, be it Team Dynamics, ServiceNow, Zendesk, SolarWinds, etc. The idea here is we, again, really want to make sure that we can leverage the data that students have already given us. Maybe a quick story just to illustrate that point. All of us have, of course, gone to the doctor recently at some point. And sadly, when you call in to go see a physician, typically they tell you it may take 3 weeks to come in to get an appointment. You tell the receptionist what the issue is that you're looking for help from the doctor on. And then, of course, you show up that morning, and in the morning you check in, and the first question that receptionist asks, he may ask is, "What are you here for?" And we say, "Well, we told you on the phone a few weeks ago, but this is what I'm here for." And they say, "Great." And then you wait 30 minutes, you get to see the physician, and the first question she may ask you is, "What are you here for today?" So at this point, right, as a customer of the doctor, you may be somewhat frustrated. You've provided all of your medical history, all of your blood work, and everything else to your physician. At least I feel that way. And I expect my physician to really leverage that data. I've trusted them, I've selected them as my caregiver, and I want them to leverage that data. Well, the analogy back to higher ed is that colleges are really in a similar position, right? Between the admissions application, the FAFSA form, scholarship applications, housing applications, and others, students have really come to trust the institutions they've chosen to go to. And they really want the institution to leverage that data from across their enterprise in every single interaction that that student has with the campus. Be it a phone call to a live agent like us, for example, at BlackBeltHelp, or to a person on the phone at the campus, an escalated call, or of course through a chatbot. So that's the idea behind really the power of integrating all of those disparate systems on campus to move forward and to serve that student in a way that meets their expectations. So we're going to focus a little bit more on the chatbot, and we kind of jokingly call it the ultimate team player, but it really is. It's certainly maybe not as powerful as a well-informed staff member, of course, but it really is a way to try to take the pressure off the staff member at campus. We know that between some folks walking into the offices, phone calls, emails, text messages, that it can be overwhelming for staff at campuses today. Needless to mention some of the challenges that have come up with the FAFSA issues today and the new FAFSA form. That's just, of course, added some fuel to that challenging fire sometimes to put out. But we feel like the chatbot is a really great way to add bandwidth to an existing team at a very low cost, and also, of course, be 24/7. So they really are built and designed strictly for higher ed. Or we don't build bots for the healthcare industry or for K-12. It is only for the higher ed industry. And it's critical to note that, because one of the things that we'll talk about in a little bit is our chatbot, and it is a conversational bot versus maybe a generative bot. And we're in testing now with generative bots with certain customers. But the reason we're moving carefully in this area is we know that bots can hallucinate. And if you haven't heard that term, that is where bots sometimes can go off the rails and provide answers that are either inappropriate or incorrect. And we know that that is not something that higher ed can tolerate. So we've built our bot to be conversational in nature and very, very controlled in terms of the content that that bot can access to answer questions. So that's kind of the quick background on our chatbot. It adapts to unanswered questions. It solicits feedback by looking for sort of intent-based answers from students and users, meaning a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And then we also always ask for feedback at the end of every bot experience and create a ticket so that that bot experience, number one, creates a chat transcript for every interaction we have that gets stored in a ticket. But then that ticket can be shared with all three parties, meaning potentially our advisors that may be taking inbound interactions for the institution, the institutional staff, and the user that submits that question. The other piece, of course, I mentioned earlier is, of course, the integration with all of your campus applications. So that is critical. And the last piece that makes our bot unique is that at any point when a user wants to escalate to a human assistant, it can. And that human assistant then gets that complete chat transcript from across that entire enterprise and all of those questions that that user may have proposed to the bot. So I think we now have a poll question next.
Yeah, we could throw that poll question up. We'd like to hear relative to what you might be using today, for those of you not using a chatbot. Are you getting a sense or a preference of starting to leverage something more automated and conversational that doesn't necessarily require direct human interaction? So the question is, would you prefer using chatbot to address and answer your students' questions? Yes, no, or are you still undecided?
And it's a great question. Thanks for bringing it up, Jared. While we're waiting maybe for everyone to vote, when we have done focus groups with students on campuses at our client institutions, partner client institutions, we've seen just overwhelming responses that users really do, and not just student users, but faculty and staff users have really wanted to leverage and have that option for a chat or a voice bot, in addition to the typical means of reaching out, be it a phone call, a web ticket, or a live chat experience, meaning a live chat experience with an agent. So we'll give folks just another second or so to answer those questions. And then we'll continue on. All right. So let's go to the next slide. So a little bit more about the bot. Here's our first picture of our bot. We are a little nerdy, but we do call it Neo. But of course, we brand it for the institution going forward. We sort of lovingly call it that we try to future-proof the campus technology, the AI technology going forward. It is Google Dialogflow based. It's sort of a hybrid of that approach. But the idea there is to really help your campus stay current with technological trends and meet the needs of your users where they're saying things like, hey, that's great that I can call in. Maybe you're already a potential partner of ours at BlackBeltHelp, where your 24/7 access and call-in support is available. But obviously, multimodal and multi-channel is much better. So being able to take phone calls, web tickets, but then add both a voice bot and a chat bot in addition to other areas, again, be it email and other traditional kind of methods, is really key. Every student and every user will have a different desire, and sometimes that desire changes based on their question. They may want to work with a bot on easier questions around, have you received my FAFSA, or what are my grades? And then maybe with a more challenging question around satisfactory academic progress appeals, or getting an appeal to join into a class that may already be full, they may want to make a phone call. But the idea there is to offer everyone a real multi-channel experience so that they can really pick what is best for them. So we'll kind of talk about some more of these features as we get farther along. We integrate, you'll see as we do the demo, we have these tools called chips, and the chips really enable guided self-help. And the idea there is to make it simple for users that may not know what their question is to say, okay, well, I can pick categories of different types of questions, and it may guide me along the process. We already mentioned that, of course, there's at any point a user can escalate to a live person, whether that's in the bot or other areas. And there's well over 100 different languages that are supported in the bot to really make users feel like they can pick a language that they feel most comfortable with. And then lastly, of course, there's a full suite of reports and dashboards for administrators to see and track, has the bot been successful? How many sessions have there been? What's the user feedback rating for those sessions, the CSAT, if you will? How many have been resolved? How many have been escalated? And what's maybe the most common questions that are being asked of the bot? So those are all things that can really help as you work with your existing client support managers. They can highlight areas that can generate improvements to both a knowledge base or to existing service plans, in addition to really giving great insights on who's accessing the bot and with what types of questions. Let's go to the next one. So again, these are the areas that the bot can help with. So just like on our 24/7 support from a agent perspective, the bot can support all of those same areas, be it admissions, financial aid, reg records, veterans affairs, housing, LMS, IT support. Because again, now the bot is able to be integrated to all those different systems on your campus. The same way that our agent can look up that information in Advisor Assist, a bot can access it as well. And that way, the bot can be both an FAQ bot, meaning things like what's your Title IV school code, or is the campus open today, or what is the call-in number for IT help desk support. But it can also answer student-specific questions that we mentioned earlier, and we'll be showing that to you in just a few minutes. Things like, have you received my FAFSA? How much is my balance due? Do I have a hold on my record? What are my courses? What are my grades? So it enables the bot to be very much more powerful in an integrated way, and really takes the bot from maybe answering 25% or so of those user questions as an FAQ bot to typically around 40 to 50%, maybe more, of those questions that a user may have in an integrated nature. And it really drives up user satisfaction as well, because now your constituents, your users, can access all the different types of tools and data and get those answers whichever way they like, and then again, very easily escalate to an agent if desired, or to a human if desired. So let's go to the next slide. So the next question typically is, what's the time frame for implementing a chatbot? Well, the answer is it varies, but typically it's somewhere between 3 to 5 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the scope of the bot. And that is sort of from contracting to go live. What's also unique about our bot is that we're not delivering just an empty shell of a tool that you then have to fill out and complete. Part of our implementation, as you can see there during information collection and data gathering, is really to deliver a bot that when that goes live at launch, that it's now certainly it's not 100% perfect at that point, but our goal is to be somewhere around 80 to 85%, where that bot has nearly all of the information at go live. And the idea is that our team then will collect that data from the institutional users at your campus. We'll look at your website, we'll look at your policies and procedures manuals, we'll look at any type of knowledge base that you may already have, and we'll also interview staff. And we'll build that entire bot so that it comes pre-built and preloaded with all the content that is unique to your institution. So that by launch period, you're able to watch the bot and see how that bot then serves students and drives a real positive experience for your users, and makes it just a very positive experience overall. So last question before we get into a bit of the demo, why should I migrate to the newer version? So obviously one of the big reasons, of course, is the future proofing, meaning staying with the version of the bot that we deliver all of the features to, and that of course will be the BBH bot. But the other couple things that you can tell right away where our newer bot is, there'll be a Powered by BlackBeltHelp logo in the bottom right. You'll be able to do an in-app live human transfer along with the chat transcript. The data can be integrated, and you'll also have the chips that you see in orange on that little screenshot there that will also show you in a bigger environment in just a moment. But really the benefits to migration are always to stay current and to leverage all the new technologies that are out there. And as I mentioned earlier, part of our roadmap that Christopher Uthi, our Chief Product Officer, is working on is how do we develop and deliver in a safe environment generative AI features that still enable all the cool features of a generative AI experience, but with none of the risk, because everything has to be de-risked, especially for institutions, right? We don't want the bot to go off the rails and provide either inappropriate or inaccurate answers. That's worse than giving no answer at all. So I think we have one more poll coming up next that we'll do.
Yeah, and we'll go ahead and put that poll up, and then I do have one question that just came in for you, Anthony.
Sure.
So first, we'll direct a question to the audience, which is, have you considered or are you currently considering implementing an AI chatbot and or voice bot in the near future? And I know we probably have a mixed audience here. So some of you, as Anthony mentioned, may be using the current version of Unified Yoda. So the initial chatbot we released within the Engage platform. The slide he just presented gives you all the reasons why we want to encourage you to migrate as soon as possible to the latest and greatest. But you may be using chatbots on your public website or for your IT help desk outside of this as well. So feel free to let us know if you're already using one or if you are looking to move soon.
All right, great.
And
All right, let's get everybody.
as that comes in, Anthony, there's a question about the human transfer to agent. So, sorry, transfer to human agent. Does that send students to somebody within the university or to somebody from Black Belt Help?
It can do either. Obviously, if you're using our services today in terms of that 24/7 or nights and weekend support, whatever that may be in terms of that scope, that can come to our team. It's designed to be that way just because, again, our team is designed to take all of those tier one questions and try to answer, anywhere from 85 to 90% of those questions. But if you would prefer to use just our bot, there are ways that we can also have those that escalation to a live person just go directly to the team on campus, assuming that there are teams on campus available to take those interactions. So great question.
Great. Yeah, thanks. And Anthony, not to spoil anything that you might demo, but what I love about working with Black Belt Help is I typically hear that answer a lot is there's a lot of flexibility. So even when you talk about, how does the chatbot answer certain questions, there's an initial training of the chatbot that allows us to seed answers to questions. But if you wanted to override or provide additional context or information to any of those answers, it's a similar model where we have some customers that are managing that influx itself, including unanswered questions and providing their own answers. But I know, Anthony, your team has worked with a lot of our unified customers to manage that on their behalf as well. So, whether it's transferred to a live agent in the moment or who's manning the unanswered questions that are being asked to the chatbot, I've heard really similar responses from your team, which is awesome because some universities are staffed to accommodate that and would rather, their internal staff field those things, and others, quite frankly, need and want the assistance of a managed service. So I think that's a cool, flexible capability within your platform.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. And that's what we've heard from our clients as well, both our current clients and prospective clients, is they want choice, right? They may be either a very large or a very small institution that already has a very well-staffed and trained internal team that can handle those inbound interactions. And if that's the case, then great, right? Then we can deploy technology for those institutions like chatbots, voice bots, maybe advisor assist to help them with their presence-based one-stop team. But then some institutions will say, hey, we just can't keep up, right? It's very difficult to find resources, to keep those resources on campus. We really need help. Maybe it's nights and weekend support only, where the team on campus can answer sort of a 7 to 7 and we take over at 7 and cover the nights, weekends, and holidays. Or we can do a 24/7 experience where we take every single inbound user interaction where all of the phones on campus just go silent. And then we only escalate those issues back to the campus teams that are tier 2 in nature, or that they're, that are in scope for the team to answer. Typically that's 10 to 15% of those questions. Well, great. I'm going to jump in and we're going to transition to the demo. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Maybe Jared, let me know as soon as you all can see that.
I can see it now.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to go ahead and I don't mean to be rude, but I'm going to be looking over at my other monitor. So please do just interrupt me if there are questions, but I'm going to open up our chat bot. This happens to be our bot for Columbia University. Right away, you can see that the bot identifies itself as a bot in nature. And the key there is to be very upfront with users that this is a bot and it's not a live person. But what we can do, of course, is tailor that look and feel to match your institution's style sheets, color scheme, mascots. We've run the gamut with all of those in the screen before where we showed our different clients. Most clients tend to use a mascot and some type of a version of that mascot to be a nice kind of engaging tool, and they'll also name it based on maybe their mascot. This one happens to be, of course, for Columbia University and their Cub system, but right away it does identify itself as a virtual assistant. And you'll see in the bottom right, it's powered by Black Belt Help. But there are a couple of things that I wanted to point out right away. So number one, of course, as I said, it'll match and really enhance the look and feel of your current website. It can be deployed anywhere, either within this website or on mobile apps. It is a responsive design, so it will actually look and feel very nice to that user using it. So the second thing I mentioned earlier in the process are these things called chips that are these light blue sort of ovals. And you can have as many of these as you like. We have some institutions that have well over 10 to 12 and some that just have a few depending on the scope of the bot. But the idea is that these chips make it very easy for someone to say, well, I'm not sure what my question is, but I think it's surrounding IT help desk, for example. And then it can pop up additional chips to then walk that user through additional processes to show them, hey, maybe my question is about customer or computer support or contacting the IT desk, or I may want to go back to the menu because I wanted to pick financial aid or admissions. So let's pick admissions, for example. And you can also have it, of course, just immediately pop up for admissions, maybe an admissions video or a video about the campus. But you'll also notice right below that video, there is a thumbs up and a thumbs down. And that's just a way for users to give targeted feedback about that particular content item, or feedback that is direct to just that specific item. So I just went ahead and said, great, on great video. It says thank you, and it's a thumbs up. But all of that is now tracked in our back end so that administrators can see what folks tend to like and not like. And again, that's the idea, is to get constant user feedback. So I'm going to go ahead and do some different test scenarios. We're going to kind of focus on both FAQ and integrated questions. So a very common question might be, what are the FA office hours? And you'll see the moment that I start typing, it does try to predict what I'm looking for up here where it says FA pending. Now, in this case, I'm not looking for FA pending. I'm looking for the FA office hours. So I'm just going to hit enter. But it does try to predict the question that you ask. And that's also another way to kind of do some guided self-help with the user so that that user kind of says, oh, well, that wasn't my question, but maybe I'll ask that question now. So we can also ask something like, what is your federal school code? Right, so again, you can see that pop up, whether it's work study, whether it's this question here of your Fed school code. All of those things will pop up to make it easy for someone to hear that Columbia school code is 002707. So these are some examples of FAQ type questions. Maybe it's, how do I apply for admissions? And the idea there, of course, is we can embed links. Those links can then drive a link to a website on the campus that then encourages, in this case, a prospective student to apply for admission. So those are some just examples of some FAQ type questions. Maybe a more challenging FAQ question might be, what happens if I drop units? So I know I'm giving some financial aid specific examples. I'll transition to some others in a moment, but it does prompt up and pull up from the knowledge base, right? If you drop below halftime, you may be ineligible for aid. And obviously there's differences between loans and grants and federal, state, or institutional funds as well. But you can always have places where they click to show more or show less and get additional information as needed. So those are some examples of some pretty straightforward FAQ questions. Others may be, how do I call the help desk? Make it easy for them to, if they want to reach out, they can also, of course, click down here under the quick menu and just escalate to a human, or type transfer to an agent or a human, and it'll take them there as well. But another good one might be, what is the guest Wi-Fi? So again, very common questions, but what I'm going to do now is transition more to integrated questions. So one of those may be very common, which is, have you received my FAFSA? So hopefully nobody has any PTSD today. I know that there's been some challenges with FAFSAs being shipped on time from the Department of Ed to institutions. That seems like it's being rectified as we're moving through, and corrections are also now coming to campus. But I know it's been a challenging year for folks. But this is so what it's doing now is it realizes that this is a student-specific question, and it's prompting for authentication. So now what we want to do is make sure that everything that we put in here will follow your authentication protocol. So whether that is, in this case, I've just pasted the wrong item, so my apologies. But we'll put in there maybe the student last name. We'll also come in and do student's email address. So whatever your authentication protocol may be, we'll put in here, and then the last four of the student social. We'll click submit. That then goes out and does a real-time data call, in this case, probably to your ERP system, SIS, and pull back information about the FAFSA application. You can see now that the FAFSA form has been received for that particular year. It'll prompt for multiple years if needed as well, and then pull any of that information that's out there. But the next question typically may be, what documents am I missing? And now it's saying you should receive an email with these types of informations and what's missing. We can also ask questions like, how much do I owe? In this case, maybe the student owes nothing to the campus. We can also ask things like, what are my grades? Or just be simple and type in the word grades. But now it'll go out and pull data from your LMS about the grades. We can also say things like, what are my courses? And again, pull information maybe from the SMS for the LMS or ERP system. And we can ask some other questions like maybe, when is my next test? And again, you can see kind of the prompting here. You can either click on those or finish typing your question, and it'll go out and say, of all that student's courses, the next one that has a test is Sociology 155 this Friday. So those are just some examples of the integrated nature of the bot as well. And we'll customize the bot to have as much or as little content as an institution requires. But it's a really powerful way to try to drive more of that interactions that you're having from users to the bot, and to not have to require, if you're not using our agents, to not have maybe students, staff, or faculty have to always reach out to someone on campus for help. And of course, it's 24/7. It's very much a closed environment, so there's no chance for bot hallucinations and things like that. So it's a safe environment for your users to ask questions. So what I'm going to do now is finish up on the bot. I'm going to just type bye. And now what happens, of course, is it gives a chance to give feedback as well. So I'm going to give, maybe it's a 5 stars. We'll say the bot during the demo webinar was great. We can hit submit in just a second, but you can also download the chat transcript, and that will then provide that full transcript that has been discussed, and with all the different pieces of information that that user has accessed. Here, I'll make this a little larger. And you can see all the different questions that we asked of the bot throughout that whole experience that you've had, that in this case, maybe the student had, including the buy mark. But then when we close that and hit submit, it then generates a ticket number that then is usable for everyone, and sends the copy to the student, to the institution, and of course, if we're working on behalf of your institution, to us as well, and provides that ticket number. So that's what we thought we'd show you today. I'm going to transition back to the deck in just a moment if, Jared, you want to pull that up. But any questions so far about the bot being FAQ or integrated?
No questions so far. I just want to, share my excitement. I love seeing the chatbot in action. And to me, it's worth mentioning, we have a lot of integrations and applets within the student portal that aim to provide similar experiences, right? We have grades that retrieve, or applets that retrieve a student's schedule from their SIS, or a student's grades from their LMS. And in a lot of ways, what we're trying to do is provide options for that student. So, when you place an applet or a page within your student portal, you're sort of doing it as intuitively as you can, but it's still predicated on the assumption that your student knows where to go to find that information. And what we're trying to offer through this chatbot experience is a way for them to retrieve that information in their preferred way. So if for whatever reason we've placed that page in a place that they can't discover, knowing that they have that interactive chatbot experience there is just super helpful to know that it's never further than a question away. Just go to the chatbot, type it in, as opposed to hunting around looking for it, or even leveraging the in-product search. This chatbot is a way more conversational way to retrieve similar information. So for us, it's all about providing your students multiple ways to get the information they're looking for in a way that's most intuitive to them. You hear a lot of people talk about radical student centricity in the current higher ed space. And I think this is one example of that, of grabbing information from that's hyper specific to that student in a number of formats to let them retrieve it in their preferred method.
Well, it makes sense. And Jared, sorry, I took the screen back just for a second.
Okay.
I thought I'd just very quickly highlight the administrative panel. I'm not going to go too deep on this because I know time is short. But as I mentioned earlier, all those different interactions are tracked that occur within the bot or the voice bot, and they all come back to an administrative panel that users at the campus will be able to see. So we can look at total conversations, the average conversations per day, maybe unique sessions and users. And then we can also start to track all the different conversations. And then more importantly, maybe what those intents were and the most popular things that were asked. We can also then come in and look at a CSAT report of all those sessions. So here you can see the one that we just ended, right? Here's our comment that I put in where it says the bot during the demo on the webinar was great. We rated it a 5 out of 5, but we can see then as a user, again, I'm an administrative user now, I can also pull up that full chat transcript and see it, view it, review it for any potential things that we might want to correct in the bot. Because we can also come down here in the bot training section and look at either unanswered questions that maybe the bot couldn't answer. We can enter those responses, we can save them, or escalate them to someone on a campus to approve them. And that makes it a very easy way to kind of look at those unanswered questions that the bot couldn't answer, in addition to editing maybe existing questions. And this is a tool that does that as well. So I thought I'd just share that briefly. If anybody's interested in learning more, obviously reach out to your CSM and we can set up some time to see more.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. We did have a question come through. It's a pretty specific question about whether or not ticket numbers from team dynamics can be integrated into the chatbot. So I'm gonna go on a limb and assume that means, can students check on the status of a ticket based on the ticket number?
Yes, they can. And I do believe so. We've integrated to Team Dynamics and really just about every other ITSM out there. We can either do a direct integration that is real time, or we can certainly do an email to ticket where that ticket then can update either multiple systems on their campuses or our system as well. So yes, and the idea there is then all different users, meaning the potential user, the student, staff, or faculty member, or the person on campus, or if we're also taking interactions for that campus, we can see those tickets as well, view the result and what was done for that particular user. So great question. Well, great. We're going to kind of finish up with just a quick review of maybe 2 success stories where we've been working with Unified and BlackBeltHelp to bring some success. The first one, of course, is City College of San Francisco. They have a full and complete chatbot. We can also send the link to that to folks if you'd like to meet with your CSM as well. You can go out and kind of play with both their bot and their knowledge base. But they answer every question from across the board, whether it's IT, admissions, LMS, records and reg, financial aid, etc. And you can see some of the outcomes down in the bottom left. 25% reduction of phone calls, which is a great statistic when you think of 25% of the total length of phone calls that staff get. That's thousands upon thousands of hours of saved time, either in this case for City College's staff, because those go directly to them, or if we're working with one of our partner institutions that we take calls for, a huge savings for them in terms of the cost of those calls. And a 97% resolution rate with a 90% satisfaction rate. And you can see a wonderful quote from one of our just fantastic partners, Ellen Reyes, who's the CTO and AVP at City College of San Francisco. Let's go to the next one. And before we kind of go to Q&A, we've got this last slide here about UN Reno. Again, everything kind of from login access, IT support, banner help, my gosh, course plans, LMS, etc. We support for them in their chatbot. Again, a 92.5% resolution rate, an 86% first call resolution rate, because we also take inbound support for them, inbound phone calls, and a 93% agent sat rate for our calls, but then also a 4.2 out of 5 chatbot CSAT rate. And you can see, again, a great quote from Ben there from UNR. So we want to save time for questions and answers. So we're going to kind of move to the next slide. We're just going to move to Q&A, and both Jared and I can take whatever questions folks may have.
And while we wait on some of those to roll in, we have one last poll question. Anthony's, the demo was awesome. Love the context. Really appreciate the success stories. That's really exciting to see. Based on what you guys have seen today as part of this webinar, we're just curious, which of your on-campus offices do you think would benefit the most from an AI chatbot? So for those of you that are already using an AI chatbot, maybe this is more about who's benefiting the most. For those of you that are looking into it, what's the driver there? Are you looking at your IT office, admissions office, financial aid office, student accounts, or some other department on campus that you hope to primarily benefit from this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll give you some feedback on what we've seen in our couple years, and maybe Jared, then you can give some feedback too from what you've seen Unified. For the most part, a lot of our campuses, our partner campuses, have started with IT, just because they may have already been an IT customer of ours in terms of us taking either 24/7 or night and weekend support for them for calls and emails and things like that. But what we're really seeing lately is a big move to the student services area, because that integrated bot is just super powerful in that area. It's also really powerful, of course, in the IT area to do things like automated password resets, because that could be as much as 40% of an institution's IT volume. So I'm
I
not
see
sure,
a
Jared, if
question
you're
in the
seeing
chat
similar
there.
things.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, you prompted me and I already forgot. I got distracted by a shiny object. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm my view is sort of by design, I think, skewed towards student engagement and student success. So I see a lot of use cases benefiting that are emerging around, like I mentioned before, just offering students flexibility if they don't want to, try to find the right link that takes them to the place that gives them the answer they're looking for. Just let me ask the chatbot. Let me get the answer to a question I have. Let me pull hyper specific information about my student record. And then on the admissions side, we see a lot as well. As I mentioned before, we have an admissions product. We see a lot of admissions officers that are fairly overwhelmed. And we've moved from a world where there's a lot of SMS and email-based campaigns to try to proactively respond to students that are applying for admissions, to a world where they can access a chatbot and they can get answers to their questions about, hey, what's the next steps here? Do I need to upload any more documents? What's my admission status? And we're finding that that's a really powerful way to drive that experience that is kind of well beyond what we had with, one-way directed emails or text messages that say, thanks so much, we'll get back to you, at our convenience. So I have no doubt the IT use cases and the Veterans Affairs and other pieces that you've mentioned are super valuable, but the ones I see the most are student engagement and admission.
Makes sense. And again, I know there's a question in there, and I can see that in there too. So I'll just kind of jump in, Jared.
Cool.
So it's a two-parter, and I think it's a great two-parter. How long did it take UNR to roll out their pieces? It's a tough question just because we rolled out those pieces in different timeframes. But a very good question, because what is very common is many institutions may already be a partner of either Unified or BlackBeltHelp, or just have, again, we're agnostic, some other type of support mechanism in place to take inbound volume. So for UNR, we help them go live first on inbound IT and LMS support, for phone calls, chats, web tickets, emails, etc. And that was, again, anywhere from about 8 weeks or so. And then more recently, we then brought them up on the chatbots. And again, chatbot is typically that 4-week process, sometimes a little less if it's not an integrated bot, if it's an FAQ bot. And then sometimes a little bit more depending on the number of integrations that are out there. For example, one of our current clients, Collin County Community College in Texas, did a very simple integration to do password resets. And that was a very quick implementation. But maybe an implementation out there that involves financial aid, reg records, student accounts, that takes a little longer. But in terms of your second or follow-up question, we do have a lot of Banner users. Banner, Colleague, and to some extent, PeopleSoft tend to be the most popular SISs, but we've done a lot of integrations to Banner. So I think your question is, can we leverage a faster rollout? And the answer to that is yes. We know how Banner works. We know how Lucian Colleague works. We've sort of integrated them in multiple ways. So one of our other clients, Pasadena City College, very large public community college in Southern California, we do all inbound phone volume for them as well from students for, again, all those areas: financial aid, student accounts, reg records, admissions. But then we added chatbot support as well. So it certainly would be easier for a Banner institution to come up and go live. Timeframes just vary, and I'd love to throw out a number. It's just tough because there are things like vacation schedules and for different administrators on campus, but we'll move as fast as an institution wants us to. And we can usually accomplish a go live timeframe that is needed based on a certain kind of critical event. And whether we have to phase that or do it all at once, we'll find a way to meet folks' needs.
Yeah, one thing I want to make sure, I've spent a good bit of time, Anthony, with one of your colleagues, Christopher Uthi, who you mentioned before, and just through conversations with him, one thing I want to make sure doesn't get confused here. The specific question in chat said, can we speed up the implementation by using someone else's answer? And I just want to proactively make sure that the experience you have with your chatbot is we don't share your specific answers that you've overridden or your customer conversations with other institutions. We certainly have generalized responses that are higher ed specific, but just know we do have competitors that operate as what Chris and I talk about as a centralized brain. And so, it can only respond to certain types of questions that are relevant across multiple universities. We very much think of this AI chatbot as it is your institution's brain. So you don't need to worry about information about your institution being shared with other universities or conversations from your students being shared outside of the domain of your school. So I know this was more based on, is there a way that BlackBeltHelp can take their learnings to speed up my implementation? Absolutely. But I don't want someone else to read that and fear that, oh, so you're using my answers that I'm providing for my students for other institutions. That's not the case. We think of it as a very self-contained ecosystem.
Yeah, and thanks, Jared, for jumping in, because that is a great question. I tend to have that altruistic hat on where I think, hey, we've done Banner a lot. Do we certainly understand sort of the data element dictionary of Banner and the architecture? And we do. But yes, you're 100% correct. Do we share answers from institutions to other institutions? And the answer is absolutely not. We certainly, like you said, can share questions like, what is a Pell Grant? But even then, we want to tailor it to maybe a community college or for your public or for your private. And then we want to insert links that are links to that institution's page for financial aid. So great clarification. Thanks. I think one other question did come in, which were, did we have a chance to show any of the password reset ones? We just ran out of time, but again, we certainly can set up time to give you a demo of the password reset tool. We can also send you phone numbers. I mentioned Collin County Community College District. We can give you their number if you want to try calling in and seeing how that voice bot works, because we can also do a password reset on a chat bot or a voice bot. But probably best to set up a time with your CSM and we can go into more detail. But good question.
Yeah, and I know we're 2 minutes over. I want to thank you first and foremost, Anthony, for taking the time to share your expertise in this area with Unified customers. I think it's awesome. I think hopefully it's easy to see just why we think so highly of BlackBeltHelp and their expertise in this area, and why we've made the decision to really centralize our go forward plans from a product standpoint on the BlackBeltHelp chatbot. And I also want to thank the audience. You guys have been super engaged. Really appreciate you responding to our poll questions, submitting Q&A. That's great. These are not fun to host when it feels like you're talking to a wall. So thanks to everybody so much. I want to be mindful of your time, and we hope to see you again on a future webinar.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jared.